Deer and trapping season are over at the proving grounds, but that doesn't mean we're taking a break. It's time now to focus on habitat and specifically using prescribed fire.
GrowingDeer.tv is brought to you by Bass Pro Shops, also by Reconics, Trophy Rock, Eagle Seed, Nikon, Winchester, Dead Downwind, Antler Dirt, Lacrosse Footwear, Blood Sport Arrows, Flatwood Natives, Morel Targets, Caldwell, Hooks Custom Calls, Montana Decoy, Summit Tree Stands, Drake Non-Typical Clothing, House Lubricator Products, LEM Game Processing, G5 Broadheads, Prime Bows, Redneck Hunting Blinds.
There's a few topics we talk about where we get more emails than prescribed fire. Both England and Spain sent guides through this area studying the resources, seeing if they were worth going to war over. And they took really detailed notes. And in their notes, they talked about riding across fires that were 60, 70, 80 miles wide. That large a fire certainly changed the landscape, but you got to recall, even here in the Ozarks, there were elk and buffalo and lots of critters running around that were dependent on that fire habitat. I can't think of a more natural tool to use to improve the habitat than fire here at the proving grounds. That doesn't mean I'm encouraging you all to run out and drop a match and set a fire. Most state agencies offer prescribed fire workshops, and you need to be trained, have the appropriate equipment before you ever use fire as a tool. There's textbook courses about prescribed fire, but in reality, if we think about it, fire happened when conditions were dry. It may be a winter fire, it may be a summer fire. Whenever conditions got really dry and there was a lightning strike or a campfire got out or whatever happened, the fire would take off, and not likely was it put out. It burned as far as the habitat would support the fire. Here at the proving grounds, we define very distinct units using roads, creeks, and man-made fire breaks to control where we burn. We burn at different times of the year for different missions. We may burn in the spring to reduce the amount of fuel and let the sun get down to the ground to encourage new growth, or we may burn in the fall specifically to do a better job of removing hardwood saplings. Early February, and it's about time to start using prescribed fire for habitat improvement here at the proving grounds. The biggest concern for any application of prescribed fire is safety. I'm standing in a fire break or an area where all fuel has been removed and there's simply nothing to burn across this area. But it's not one fire break size fits all. If there was a big head fire coming this way, no doubt it'd be burning and throwing embers and would probably jump over here and the fire would jump the break. We plan to burn this unit first, starting fire on the uphill side and let it backing down to this break. A backing fire doesn't have much momentum, it's not throwing a lot of sparks off, and this break will be more than adequate to keep the fire from spreading to the downhill side. You might look at an open hardwood stand like this and wonder what benefits would be gained by using a prescribed fire. Probably notice there's a thick layer of leaf duff all around me. That thick layer of leaf duff does a good job of holding moisture, which could be positive. However, that moist layer is ideal tick habitat. And by using prescribed fire to remove this layer of duff for a couple of months out of the year can go a long ways toward reducing the ticks in this stand. That layer of duff also keeps the sun from reaching the soil. There are all kinds of native seeds down in here, but they can't germinate because they're covered up by that layer of duff. By simply using a gentle prescribed fire and removing this duff layer, we'll probably get some germination of forbs and native grass, giving a lot more diversity and even added food during the summer in this stand. This is primarily an oak hickory forest with some minor species in the understory, and those minor species like sassafras and other species do a really good job of growing in shade. So without a prescribed fire, this would become chock full of saplings. We want to burn when the saplings are like a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch in diameter or less at ground level, and that way the fire will come through, girdle the sapling, and kill it before it matures to something this size that fire won't kill. Probably know several dead stems like this one here and behind me, but those weren't killed by fire. These are all sassafras. And we went through with hack and square, a hatchet and some herbicide, hit them one time and 1 milliliter of herbicide and killed these because they're simply too big. If we had a fire hot enough to kill this 2-inch tree, it would do damage to the larger oaks that we want to protect. We're literally right across the road from where I showed you we treated the sassafras with the hack and squirt method. On that side, we had about 100% kill, and you see very few living sassafras. We tried a different treatment on this side. We took chainsaws, cut the sassafras off at ground level, and treated the stump with a herbicide. It seems like that would be a great technique, but when you're out here in the woods and you're cutting all the sassafras, and then a crew's coming behind you, painting the stumps with herbicide, the tops are everywhere and it's easy to miss some of those stumps. These sassafras stump sprouts are now so large, I doubt we can kill them with the prescribed fire. If we had to fire that hot, we would damage or kill the residual oaks we wish to save. Rather, we'll have to come back in here with herbicide and treat these sassafras to clean up the area. There's so many sassafras stump sprouts in here, they're shading the ground, not allowing anything to grow even after a prescribed fire. So we have a dense canopy about 5 to 10 feet tall with no cover where the critters want to live. We will use prescribed fire in this area to reduce the tick population and then follow up with a hack and squirt treatment in an effort to restore these woods to a more productive area.
During February and March, the conditions can be great for burning. Almost all the leaves are off the trees now. There's plenty of leaf litter, so we're out today making our first fire line. With just these simple tools, a leaf blower, chainsaw, and of course our safety gear, a little bit of work, and adding a prescribed fire, we can turn a several hundred-acre piece of timber that's almost a biological desert into a beautiful lush green spot this spring that turkeys are going to love. Well, we moved on down the fire line a little ways. This is just a great example of why the animals love a burned area. Of course, we've just removed the leaves like the fire will do, and there's acorns all over the ground. Once we start spring green up, there's going to be a carpet of fresh green growth throughout the burned area, so all wildlife can benefit from it. The most important thing to remember when you're making a fire break is getting down to bare soil, or rocks if your place is like the proving grounds. We're removing all the leaves, sticks, logs out of our fire break, making it about 5 to 10 foot wide, making sure our fire is contained within the burn unit. One thing that's very important on prescribed fires, and it's often overlooked, is snags. When I refer to a snag, I'm talking about a dead tree, a log, or even a tree top that's near a fire break, and it has the ability to catch fire and potentially throw embers across your fire line, or it burns through and falls across the fire line, depending on how close to the fire break it is. This can be bad news for a prescribed fire, so it's important that you locate all the snags near your fire breaks and make sure they're not going to cause problems. Ways we prevent problems out of snags is either cut them down with a chainsaw, or if they're a big one like this, we're going to take our leaf blower and blow about a 10-foot circle all the way around it, making sure there's no way for a fire to creep in and set it on fire.
I like shooting my bow year-round, but this time of year, I changed my practice technique to fit the upcoming turkey season. I enjoy shooting my bow year-round, but particularly this time of year, because several states have an archery-only turkey season. We all know that turkeys have incredible vision, and they're especially good at detecting movement. That's why when I'm turkey hunting with a bow, I choose to be in a blind. Shooting a bow sitting down often results in changes in form compared to shooting a bow while standing. You may recall last fall, we shared with you a technique I use called blind bell practicing, where I shoot the bow at a target just a yard or two away, shut my eyes, and totally focus on form. That's a great technique and to carry over into practicing for turkey season. If you're like me, you probably cheat every now and then on your blind bell just to make sure you're pointed towards the target. And when you do, you notice wherever your 20-yard pin is, your arrow will be inches low at 5, 6, 7, 8 yards. It's easy to understand why the arrow will be low at close yardage. Look at where my sight pins are and the plane of the arrow. The bow is sighted in for the plane of my sight pin going from the peep sight to the pin and the arrow to cross over at 20 yards. But before that, the arrow is significantly low. Shooting low could cost you the chance to fill a tag. Let's say you put your decoys out at 10 yards from the blind, but the tom struts between the decoy and the blind, offering you a 4 or 5 yard shot. If your arrow's 4 inches low, you've missed the vitals on a turkey. For my bow, I've learned that at about 10 yards and further, I can count on my pins being spot on. But if the target is closer than 10 yards, I need to compensate so I don't shoot low.
Thank you, Lord.
And if the tom's at 10 yards, I'm following that leg up if he's broadside to right where the secondary feathers come across, putting the pin on there, calling Tracy, telling her I'm bringing home a gobbler. So in addition to practicing with the blind bell technique and getting used to the form of setting down versus standing up, shoot your bow from 0 to 10 yards at different distances to find out where you need to compensate to make sure the arrow's going in the vitals. One of the most important things you can do when practicing your bow for turkey season is make sure you know where to hold the bow for those close range shots. Several folks have already registered for our field day, which will be April 1st and 2nd. But since we announced that, we've got some additional news to share. James Harrison, who has won both the World and Grand National Championships in owl hooting and other forms of calling, is going to be here during our field day giving some demonstrations how he calls turkeys. There are other surprise guests that are going to join us during our field day, and I can't wait to share that learning experience with you. I hope you have time to get outside and enjoy creation this week, but most importantly, slow down each day, find a place to be quiet, and listen to what the Creator is saying to you. Thanks for watching Growing Deer.
Listen to the difference. I'm gonna start calling the wood. No, if I was Sasquatch calling, I'd be doing this. Oh!